because I love your story. It's kind of the rags to riches to rags to riches. But the thing I'm even more interested in and that I love hearing is kind of the not such a nice guy to really nice guy transformation. So maybe tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your story.
Yeah, cool. And I think, nice is interesting because I was really a kind person. I think it's more, as much as it's rags to riches story, it's scarcity to abundance. Even though I had a ton, super scarce. And I'll tell you why, because I grew up in a scarce mentality. I grew up with 6 kids and a single mom. 5 boys and a girl. She worked 2 jobs as a second grade teacher and then packed our dinners into a Country Squire station wagon to fill up turnstiles at convenience stores. And I literally, although I grew up in a scarce environment, it doesn't mean you can't be happy. So super happy kid. My siblings were extraordinary students. My mom, drove us. We always say as a martial artist of 3rd degree black belt in Jewish guilt, she drove us and woke us up early. Those were the 2 best parenting tips that I got from my mother. But I grew up not thinking that happiness could be fully achieved unless you were rich. The only reason I thought that is only time my mom wasn't happy was when, the frustrations, anxieties, fears of not having money to fix stuff or to send us to summer camp or worse, college. It was overwhelming at times, and I'd witness my mom crying, which changed my life because at the age of 5, when my dad left and I became, in my mind, the man of the family, I decided that I was going to be rich because that would make me happy all the time, especially if I could buy my mom a house and a car. Now, although that's a pretty abundant attitude, right? I want to buy my mom a house and a car. There's a scarce energy that there wasn't enough. And I see it here in Newport Beach. I know this is about Southern California. I run into guys that have $40 million homes in Newport Coast, and they're as scarce as I was when I was financially successful in my 20s. But I was driven by money. And I believe full-heartedly for almost the first half of my life that money bought happiness. And I proved it because 9 months out of law school, I was a millionaire and I bought my mom a house and a car. I paid off my law loans. Although that first million wasn't what I dreamed about when I was 5 and told my mom that I was going to be a millionaire, buy a house and a car and retire. It just wasn't affordable. I actually did live in Southern California. I built a home above Monarch Beach a few months later. But ironically, I lived in this scarce environment and it grew. I made more money on the Silicon Valley. I worked for a company that sold for $3.4 billion 3 years out of law school, leveraged that into the Sand Hill Road days of raising hundreds of millions of dollars, leveraged that into be CEO of Samsung's first cell phone.
Those were the days of the wild, wild west.
Wild, people stroking big checks. But I think scarcity is the main lesson that I learned. And the weird thing about me is there was 3 things that taught me the lesson of scarcity. And if you had time, I'd love to share them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first one was my father. So my father left. And when I was a kid, I'm going to break up crying a little bit because I still have so much guilt. But my dad was my hero. And I used to tell my mom, you can imagine, she's working 2 jobs. Back in the 70s, you didn't have to pay child support. You were supposed to, but there wasn't what there is today. People have to understand this. So there's my mom with 6 kids sacrificing everything. And there's me in the back seat saying, you're such a loser, Mom. Why can't you be more like Dad? Meanwhile, Dad was wealthy, married a girl closer to my age than his, and flaunted his wealth but didn't support us. But I'm sitting there, this is my hero, my dad, until my 10th birthday when he forgot my birthday, which wasn't so bad. It's bad, but what was worse is he told me he didn't forget my birthday, but he just doesn't believe in birthdays. So he now punished me for the next 20 years with that insult that I was so stupid at 10 years old that I believe that he didn't believe in birthdays when he had been giving gifts to everybody, including himself, and continued to do it. It was like a very, very hard thing for me to take. But at 30 years old, my dad gave me a jacket for my birthday. It's the first present in 20 years. And I broke down in tears of happiness that he remembered my birthday, gave me a sport coat that fit perfectly, meant that he asked my wife for my measurements, which meant even more than the jacket. But then when I opened it up, it had no pockets. He ripped all the insides out. And I was perplexed. And this was the first lesson of scarcity because my dad, when I called him aggravated and asked why he was punishing me, he said, I'm not. I said, well, I can't wear the jacket. He said, I know it's not for wearing. It's to hang in the closet to remind you you're just like me. And I literally am like, just like you, what, a jerk?
Right.
Exactly. And he goes, no. He goes, it's to remind you that you can't take anything when you're gone. I want you looking at it every day because I don't want you to be the richest man in the cemetery, make the same mistakes that I made. Basically, he was saying, don't be a scarce jerk. Right? You're a great person.
A bit of an apology, a bit of a
lesson. Yeah. And that was the first. And then the second lesson was, multi-millionaire days of many homes and a golf course and a ski mountain. And my best friend telling me, we were playing golf, and my best friend and my wife and I all have known each other since the 4th grade. We all lived houses apart from each other. In fact, at 6th grade camp, my best friend asked for me, my wife, to go steady with me. And she said, no, tell him to ask me himself. And I threw an egg at her. And so she hated me for all that time, right? And meanwhile, we went golfing, and I asked him one simple question: how come you don't hang out with me anymore? I got 3 beautiful daughters. I have this beautiful wife who you've known since elementary school. How come you don't hang out with me? And he said, because I don't like who you hang out with.
Wow.
And so I told him, well, I'm not like those guys, right? I'm not scarce like those guys. I'm not doing the things that those guys are doing, And he said, you can lie to me, but don't lie to yourself. The third and most crucial catalytic event in my life was 2 years before I lost everything. My wife, as I came home at 5:30 in the morning, doing things I shouldn't do, lying to her, and she literally told me that she wasn't happy. And at 5:30 in the morning told me that we were going to talk in the morning about what we needed to do. But I literally went to bed thinking this was a joke, and I woke up and realized she wasn't joking, and she told me that I better take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become, or I would have to learn how to be lonely, because she was going to leave. And you can see, I know we're on audio, but that's my family right there. So you can imagine a guy that looks like me with a family like that. I wasn't about to risk it. And so I changed that day. I changed my trajectory, and I started taking stock in gratitude and forgiveness and accountability, really abundance. And for years, my wife and mom told me I was scarce and that I was lost, and I would look around and say, what are you talking about? I have a Porsche and a Ferrari. I got a nanny and a huge, that's how lost I was. Right. And so half of me, my ego, has a need to be offended when people are like, well, we're kind of jerk. I was really a nice guy. I just was scarce. And I think there is a difference. Like, I didn't hurt anyone. I literally was very generous. I donated money, but I donated out of scarcity. Like, I donated because I wanted my name to be like, oh my God, Dave Meltzer donated this, right?
Yeah. So I love the story. Here's, I know that mentorship is huge for you.
Yes.
And, I know that you really take stock, and you really are all about helping youth and young folks. How do you mentor people who, maybe live in, we're talking about Orange County, Newport Beach, LA, San Diego. There's kind of a scarce environment sometimes.
Very.
How do you mentor people to say, listen, the way to do this is not scarcity, it's abundance? What's your message to those folks?
Well, first of all, what you resist persists. So what we need to do is create an equilibrium of frequency. People can only be aware of that which vibrates equal to or less than you. So what I try to do is to mirror frequency first, so that I don't have resistance to what I'm doing. There's the ego-based consciousness won't take over, so I don't want to tell people what to do. When I mentor them, the first part is to assess what frequency they're at, so that I can communicate, just like a radio, right? If I don't know what station you're tuned into, then it doesn't matter how beautiful the music is that I transmit to you. You're never going to receive it. So I think it's really important when we're mentoring people to understand the frequency or awareness level that they're at. And so I spend a lot of time. In fact, when I have a big coaching business, I always do a free month assessment. Right? I usually make people do a gratitude challenge where they have to say thank you for 30 straight days in order to qualify. But after that, for a month, I just want to assess what frequency you're at, so I can communicate to you. And you can't make major changes. That's not the way the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious works. So, our conscious, the cellular memory we have is daily. You forget everything in your cellular memory when you go to bed. Then you got the intermediate, which is your brain, the belief system, and then you have which most people don't even realize, a hard drive called your DNA that not only most people realize it has 4 generations of information in it from your great grandparents. I believe it has 4 billion lifetimes of information.
Wow.
It's a quantum field. That's what I believe. I don't care if anyone else does. So you can imagine that continuum, how important it is. So I take people where they're at, and then I share my ideas to try to crawl before we walk, before we run, and have extraordinary results because I allow people to learn for themselves what abundance is and to make the choice for themselves.